As a foreigner in the Philippines, one of the things that you should know about would be your visa options. Because some are just like okay in staying in a particular visa without knowing that there are better visa options based on their circumstances, because they have stayed under this particular visa for a very long time thinking that, and they don't even bother checking out the other visa options. Take this for example. I actually met a guy back in 2021, and he was actually a German citizen. When we had a conversation, actually I was helping him out with his tourist visa, like I was the one extending his tourist visa, and I asked him like several questions like, how long have you been under a tourist visa? How long have you been doing the visa extensions? Have you considered getting a permanent residency in the Philippines? He told me that he would not qualify for the spousal visa because he is single, and he doesn't want to get the SRV because of the huge deposit. So I told him, can I ask you a few questions? And after that, I've asked like multiple questions until I stumbled upon his previous like work. When I asked him, have you served international organizations in the past? And he told me yes. So I asked him, do you have the paperwork, like a certificate of employment that you have served in that organization? And he sent me an email about a copy of that document. I showed it to the government, and I get back to him and I told him, you actually qualify for the SRV. And he told me, nah, I'm not going to qualify for that visa. I'm not going to pay 20,000 just to get the visa and pay $360 a year. No, I'm not going to do that. And I told him, no, you're not going to get that. The SRV has different categories. There are four actually. Since you have served this international organization back in the day, it means you're qualified for the SRV courtesy category. This visa will only require you to put in $1,500 deposit. That's 1,500. And once you get the visa, you only need to pay $10 a year the rest of your life. And he told me, no, I'm not going to believe that. And I showed him the entire paperwork. I showed him the official links from the government that he actually qualified for that visa. And after that, we processed his paper, and then he was very glad that he knew about that option because he was just actually staying under a tourist visa for 4 or 5 years, I think, back in the day. He was just staying under a tourist visa. So that's the lesson that I want to like show in this video. Well, just because you've been staying in this particular visa for years doesn't mean you don't need to learn about the other visa options as well. Maybe you qualify for this or maybe not, but at least you know that there are no other visa options aside from the one that you're in. However, if you are qualified for a better visa option based on your circumstances, then it would be great. So in this video, we're going to talk about the common visas that expats apply for in the Philippines. For those of you who don't know, I'm Kevin. I used to be a visa agent back in the day. I have half a decade of experience, and I created this platform for expats to understand Philippine visas and immigration processes for them to do it by themselves, or if they want to hire an agency, they will not be ripped off. That's the main purpose of this channel, so stick around, grab a cup of coffee, let's get down to business. All right, number one, the tourist visa. Now, this is actually an entry-level visa. And I've said this before, and I'll say this again. Foreigners are classified into two. The first part would be the visa-required countries. The other part would be the visa-free countries. Now, citizens from visa-required countries must get a visa before they travel to the Philippines. Now, in this topic, we'll be talking about the tourist visa, and that is called the 9A tourist visa. They need to apply for the 9A tourist visa at the Philippine Embassy before they can travel to the Philippines. In the case of the citizens from visa-free countries, you don't need to do that. You can travel to the Philippines visa-free just by having a valid passport for at least 6 months and an exit ticket within 30 days from your arrival. Now, it could be an onward ticket or it could be a return ticket back home. Either way, as long as it's an exit ticket within 30 days, then that's good. Now, this is a very obvious information because a lot of expats already know about this duration of stay. If you're under a tourist visa in the Philippines, you can actually stay here for as long as 2 years or 3 years. Now, if you're from a visa-free country, you can actually stay here for 3 years. If you're from visa-required countries, you can stay here for up to 2 years. And just to clarify, there's no one single extension that will put you up to 2 years or 3 years. You need to do multiple visa extensions. Foreigners in the Philippines actually have two visa extension options. They could extend for 1 month or they can extend up to 2 months every time. If you're from a visa-free country, you are actually given 30-day visa-free upon arrival. Except for those Israelis and Brazilians, they actually get 59-day stay upon arrival. But for example, you are an American citizen, you travel to the Philippines, you are given 30 days visa-free. The very first extension is called the visa waiver. That puts you up an additional 29 days stay. So in total, you will be given a 59 days total stay in the Philippines. Now after that, you will then be given two visa extension options. That could be the 1 month or the 2 month visa extension. Now that is the time when you can extend your tourist visa multiple times until you max out your allowable stay. So it could be 2 years or 3 years. Now, someone emailed me if he could get a multiple entry visa here in the Philippines. Now actually the multiple entry tourist visa actually exists, but you need to get that 9A tourist visa at the Philippine Embassy or at the consulate before your trip here. Because, for example, if you're an American, you travel here, you get a 30 days visa extension, and you get your tourist visa here in the Philippines just by doing visa extension. Once you exit the country, the remaining visa that you have, let's say you still have 20 days left, that's going to be forfeited because that's not a multiple entry visa. If you want a multiple entry visa, you need to get 9A tourist visa before your trip to the Philippines. Now, you specifically need to ask them that the 9A tourist visa should be a multiple entry. Typically, the Philippine Embassy or the Philippine Consulate will issue a 9A tourist visa that is good for a year. That comes with a 59 days upon arrival. So that means they can use the tourist visa multiple times for a year, and every time they enter the Philippines, they are given 59 days. And once they're here, they can just extend their stay just like a normal tourist would. So they can do 1 month or 2 month visa extensions. Also, there was someone who emailed me about this e-visa, if it's a better option for them. I told them it depends on your circumstances and it depends on your plans to the Philippines. I told him that if you get this visa, it's intended for temporary stay. Because if you're in the Philippines under this visa, and for example, you decide to stay here for good and you apply for a retirement visa, you cannot do the retirement visa under this e-visa because e-visa is not valid for conversion and it is also not valid for extension. So that means it's better off for you to come here as a regular tourist if you have other plans in the Philippines. I'm gonna put a link in the description for you to know more about this e-visa. Okay, next up would be the 13A spousal visa. Now, this is a permanent residency visa for foreigners that are married to Philippine citizens. Now, most of the expats that qualify for this visa would be those mostly from visa-free countries. But if you're not on that list, then you would be under the TRV, Temporary Residence Visa by Marriage. Now, the difference is the 13A visa is permanent, TRV is temporary. For example, Pakistani citizen. They cannot get a permanent visa compared to like American citizen. They can only get a temporary residence visa by marriage for 2 years and it's extendable. So every 2 years they need to extend their stay under this visa. Now, one of the best things about this 13A spousal visa is that it is extremely cheap and there's no visa deposit requirement compared to the SRRV or the SIRV, where the applicant needs to deposit a certain amount of money in the bank in exchange for the visa. The 13A spousal visa has a two-stage process. They will start off under a tourist visa in the Philippines, then they apply for the 13A probationary residency, in which they are given a visa and an ACRI card valid for a year, and it's a multiple entry visa. And before the year runs out, they will apply for the 13A permanent residency, in which they are then given a permanent visa plus a 5-year ACRI card. And after that, they just need to renew the ACRI card every 5 years and pay the annual report. Additionally, one of the things that makes this visa a better option for most expats that are married to Philippine citizens is that all the documents can be obtained here in the Philippines, unlike the SRRV. For example, the pension document that must be apostilled outside the country. Now, for the 13A, there are three major documents that applicants need to know. Number one would be the PSA marriage certificate if they're married here. Number two, the PSA live birth certificate of the Filipino spouse. And number three, the NBI clearance of the applicant. That's it. There's no proof of income and there's no police background check back in your home country. So if you are married here in the Philippines, everything can be done here in the Philippines. There's no need to travel back home to get a certain document, unlike the other visas like the SRRV. So if you want to learn more about a 13A spousal visa, please check the other video that I've made. I've discussed that video in detail, so that would be extremely helpful. Okay, number three would be the 9G working visa. It is actually called the non-immigrant prearranged employee visa, and there's a reason for that. Now, it's not like you apply for the visa and you choose whatever job is available. Prearranged meaning you must already be in contact with a Philippine-based company. That means you've already discussed about the salary and you've already discussed about your job description. Take note that your job should be something that a Filipino cannot do completely. For example, if you are a German citizen and you apply for a customer service for German clients, now that's something that a Filipino cannot do completely. If you decide to apply for a 9G working visa, you have three options. You could get a 1-year, 2-year, or a 3-year multiple entry visa. The processing of this 9G working visa involves two government agencies. The first one would be the Department of Labor and Employment. Now, this government agency will issue the alien employment permit. Now, after that, once you have the permit, then you will proceed in applying for the 9G working visa. Now, the requirements in getting the 9G working visa are mostly from the employer side. That would be the BIR, tax registration, the SEC, the DTI, the business permits, like the contract of employment. Most of the requirements are obtained from the employer side. Also, if you do choose this visa, please take note that not all companies are aware about the visa processing. Because I've met expats in the past that they were told by the company that they need to get a work permit first before they can work in this company, where in fact they need to get in contact with the company first, agree with the job, agree with the salary, and then apply for the work permit and visa. That's why it's called prearranged. You need to agree with the salary first, get a contract with them, and then you apply for the work permit and working visa. Okay, number four, the SRRV, the Special Resident Retirees Visa. Now, this is a lifetime visa granted to a foreign national in exchange for a visa deposit. Now, this visa does not require the applicant to be married to a Philippine citizen because this is, in fact, an independent visa of the Philippines. So that's why a lot of expats like this visa because they don't have to get married. There are also foreigners in the Philippines that prefers the SRV over the 13A. Because they don't want their visa tied up to their marriage. If something happens to their marriage, their visa will also be affected. They don't want that to happen. Now, where do you file the SRRV? You will not file the SRV at the Bureau of Immigration. You will file this SRV at the Philippine Retirement Authority, and they have multiple offices situated around the Philippines. Now, the SRV has 4 categories: Classic, Classic with Pension, Courtesy, and Expanded Courtesy. Now, Classic, it requires 20,000 visa deposit, a one-time application fee of 1,400, and an annual fee of 360. For the Classic category with the pension, the applicant only needs to put in 10,000 visa deposit if the applicant is receiving a lifetime benefit of $800 a month. It could be Social Security or a private pension provider. For the fees, it's the same. It's 1,400 plus the 360 annual fee. Courtesy category. Now, this is for former Filipinos that has been naturalized in a foreign country. For example, a Filipino went to the USA, they got naturalized there, and when they come back to the Philippines, they don't want to get dual citizen. Well, they have an option to get a permanent residency here through the SRRV. And that's the courtesy category. And aside from former Filipinos, foreigners that have served in the Philippines as ambassadors or diplomats can also apply for this courtesy category. And also those who have served in international organizations as well. Now, the deposit for this category is only 1,500. The one-time application fee is 1,400, and then the annual fee is only $10. So the courtesy category has been extended, and it is called the expanded courtesy. It is for those who are former military. Now, the deposit is still the same, $1,500, one-time application fee is $1,400, the annual fee is $10. If you want to learn more about SRRV, check out these videos right here. And also, before I forget, the SRRV is currently available to those 50 years old and above. You don't have to be retired to get the retirement visa. As long as you are at least 50 years old, then you can apply. Then number 5, the SIRV. The last visa that we will be talking about today, the Special Investors Resident Visa. Now, the holder is granted an indefinite stay visa here in the Philippines with multiple entry privileges. Now, this visa is similar to the SRV, where one needs to put in a certain deposit in the bank and must be invested here in the Philippines. Now, this visa is issued by the Bureau of Immigration upon the endorsement of the Board of Investments. That means you need to deal with those 2 government offices if you get this visa. One of the good things about this visa is that you don't have to be 50 years old to apply. You could be at least 21 years old. The requirements in getting the SIRV is somewhat similar to getting the SRRV, where one needs to get a medical clearance and a police check from their home country. The only key difference between the two is that the SIRV requires the applicant to submit an authenticated birth certificate of the applicant. Now, the SRV does not require you to submit a birth certificate. Now, this is the key difference. Now, the SIRV is designed for foreign investors here in the Philippines, meaning you will be required to put in a substantial amount to invest in approved Philippine companies or approved Philippine stocks. The amount that we're talking about in this visa is 75,000 or at least 75,000 USD. Processing for the SIRV is somewhat similar to the 13A. The applicant needs to go through a 2-stage process in order to achieve an indefinite status in the Philippines. They will start off as tourists. They will put in money like the 75,000 in the bank. They will complete all the other requirements. Then they will submit the paperwork. And after that, they will be granted a 6-month visa under the SIRV probationary. Within 6 months, the foreign national must already invest the 75,000 USD through a Philippine company or a Philippine stock. If you choose a Philippine stock, you must go through a stockbroker here in the Philippines. And once you invest that money into stocks, you must request a proof of investment from your stockbroker because that is required for the next part of the application, which is for the SIRV indefinite status. So you get that proof from your stockbroker, you complete all the other requirements, and then you proceed with the application. And after that, you're done. You will have the SIRV indefinite status. If you want to learn more about the SIRV, I will add the official link from the government in the description. Please check it below. Well guys, that is it for today's video. I do hope that you now have a better understanding about your visa options here in the Philippines. If you have questions, leave it in the comments, or you can also send me a direct email at vin.philippines@gmail.com. Also, the free one-on-one visa call is still available. Let me know. There's no catch. It's completely free. Just send me an email and we'll schedule a time. Also, one last thing. Within this month, I'll be releasing a video that is somewhat fascinating. It's all about the desperate things that expats did during the pandemic in order for them to stay in the Philippines. So stay tuned. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on my next video. Peace.